I'm Dr. Madi, and today I'm hosting a very special guest, Dr. Sina Pourghodrat, one of the most sought-after roboticists in the world. He'll share tips on how to get a dream job in robotics today. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
So please tell us a little bit about yourself, a brief introduction, your background, your robotics work, and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a surgical robotics engineer. I'm a robotics software engineer. I work for Stryker Robotics. This is probably the second largest surgical robotics company in the world. And as I said, I'm a robotics software engineer. I do a lot of algorithms, specifically navigation, registration, robot registration, patient registration, navigation, surgical tool tracking. And so it's what I do right now. And in terms of my background, I got my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. My master's was mostly mechatronics. It was a combination of mechanical, electrical, a little bit of computer engineering. And my PhD was entirely in surgical robotics. I worked on two projects one of them were funded by NIH, National Institute of Health, and the other one was funded by NASA. I worked on two separate projects. One of them was a robot for colonoscopy. The other one was basically a robot for natural orifice surgery and what we call it notes. And and then I've been working in the robotics industry probably about 7 years now. Yeah, I graduated back in 2014, and I've worked for 3 companies so far. And that's my background.
Yeah, I worked in the surgical robotics as well for my PhD. So that's an impressive background. Thanks for sharing that. So I would like to start by asking you about your tips for finding a dream job in robotics, top robotics companies. What qualifications should people have? Should they internship for that? What courses should they pass? And also, there are a couple of questions that some of the viewers asked us. I will ask you at the end, but now I would like you to start by sharing your tips and everything that you'd like to share.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a very broad question, and there's a lot into it. Yes. So I can break it down to maybe a couple of questions or a couple of sections, and then get to each section in detail. So let's just start with what majors people should pick if they're students to become a robotics engineer, right? I've been talking about this in my YouTube channel, but I just want to highlight it here that the 3 majors that people can pick if they want to end up becoming a robotics engineer. And the very first one is computer science or computer engineering. The second one is mechanical engineering. And the third one is electrical engineering. Because robotics engineering, as you know, is a combination of all 3. So if you major in any of these 3 majors, basically, and then try to pick up their skills or try to take the courses that are relevant to robotics, chances are you're going to end up landing a job with a robotics company, right? Because a lot of colleges, a lot of universities do not have a robotics program. I mean, there's some that do offer, for example, there's one that offers WPI. They do offer a master's in robotics, but there are not really that many colleges or universities who have like a bachelor's program in robotics, right? So for that reason, you want to major in one of these 3 and then take the necessary courses to become a robotics engineer. My recommendation for sure is computer science, right? I mean, my background is mechanical engineering. I got my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, the same as you, right? But the reason I'm telling people to pick computer science is the future is computer science. We all know, right? Because a lot of challenges that this robotics company, like surgical robotics, self-driving cars, these companies are working on right now, or tackling on right now, is all related to computer science, right? A lot of innovations are happening around computer science. Let's look at self-driving cars, right? The challenges in AI, in navigation, or computer vision, right? It's not really in the mechanical part. It's not like they're trying to just design a better chassis or better engine. Don't get me wrong, there are challenges in the mechanical part as well. But the money, the funding, the opportunity, the challenge, the innovation, the majority of those things are happening around computer science, right? And so that's about what major to pick. And on the other hand, a lot of people, like, there are people who reach out to me who are a professional engineer, like there are other people who are test engineers or mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, even software developers or web developers, right? And they want to get into the robotics field. They want to become a robotics engineer, right? And I tell them as well that because they already have an engineering background, it's much easier for them to switch to a robotics engineering job, but they first need to learn the skills that are required, right? So that's the first thing. So the other question you had was, like, is internship a good option? Definitely. It's really hard to get into the robotics field without an internship, especially when it comes to surgical robotics, right? You know, why is that? Because medical device companies or surgical robotics companies are considered a medical device company. And because those companies are highly regulated by FDA, right? So companies like surgical robotics companies or medical device companies, they prefer to hire engineers who are already familiar with the FDA design control processes, right? So because of that, if you have no internship, if you don't have any experience, it's really hard to get into medical device or surgical robotics, right?
Is it also applicable for PhDs who seek to find like research jobs?
Research jobs, I'm not probably the right person to talk about that because I'm not working on academia. All of my experience, I mean, I have my PhD.
Like research in industry, I mean, not in academia.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because again, I don't know how familiar you are with the FDA design control process, but so FDA has like a design control process. It starts with something that we call a user need, and then it goes to design input, design output, verification, validation, and the list goes on, right? Even in the design input, like there's a research phase, and right after that, you have to document everything you do, and then you have to translate user needs to design input, and then everything has to be documented, and then your design needs to meet the requirements, which we call it design input, right? So even if you are planning to land a research job with a medical device company or a surgical robotics company, you still need to be familiar with the FDA design control process, right? And unfortunately, not a lot of schools or even graduate programs offer courses that teach these type of topics. So you may have to either learn them on your own or do an internship with a surgical robotics company. The other reason that doing an internship is a very good option is because when you enter the company as an intern, usually people do not expect you to know a lot of stuff. So it's easier to get into the company as opposed to a full-time job engineer, right? Because when you're for an internship, people know you have no experience, probably you do not know a whole lot about like the process, and you probably haven't used some of those tools that we use in the industry. So the only thing they expect you to be good at is self-learning, right? So if you're a PhD student, if you're a master's student, and I would highly recommend you to do an internship, right? and then start doing it from year one, maybe do a couple of years. There are several advantages of doing an internship. First of all, you get your feet into the industry. It's no experience. People do not expect you to know a lot of stuff. It's much, much easier compared to getting a full-time job. And the second reason is you build your network, right? You first of all, you learn a lot during your maybe 3 or 4 months of internship. You learn a lot. And secondly, you meet people, you work with people, you build your network. And then chances are the same company, if you performed very well, you're going to end up offering you a full-time job after graduation. I mean, I have many examples that we ended up offering a full-time job to our interns. And many companies, they actually look at it as an investment, right? So they hire the intern, they watch the intern, they monitor his or her performance. If she or he is doing well, more than likely they're going to offer him a full-time job.
Mm-hmm. So what programming languages do you recommend people to? Because I know that in mechanical engineering background, the focus is not much on the programming languages and programming stuff. But when people want to go and enter the job market, they suddenly see that they're expected to write codes and they should know some sort of programming languages. What do you recommend in this area?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. The reason for this is I tell people all the time, programming languages are like the tools that you have in your toolbox, right? Those are the core skills that anyone should have. Even if you're not trying to get into the robotics field, even if you're just trying to be a mechanical engineer, just a pure mechanical engineer, still you should learn at least one programming language. These days, if you want to land a job in any engineering discipline, you should know at least one programming language, right? But if you want to get into the robotics field, definitely you must know at least one programming language, right? And then I have a whole video about this, but I'm going to summarize it here. So if you want to become a robotics mechanical engineer, then you should definitely know C. Why? Because so as a mechanical engineer, chances are you're going to develop prototypes and proof of concepts, and then maybe design and prototype the other parts, maybe the entire robot. And then you need to be able to at least program in C so that you can, for example, if you use Arduino, we still use Arduino in the industry for rapid prototyping, right? So you have one idea, you want to rapidly prototype that and show it to the team, you use Arduino, right? And then with Arduino, if you know C, you can quickly program it, right? And then on top of that, many times as a mechanical engineer, robotics mechanical engineer, you need to design test fixtures to test your robot, right? And then even for that, you need to know one programming language, which C would be fine. And on top of it, if you know Python and MATLAB, that would be awesome, because a lot of simulations, a lot of analysis, data analysis, and stuff like that in robotics happens in MATLAB. For example, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not, but a lot of early research, proof of concept things that we do, we basically prototype them in MATLAB. Because MATLAB has a lot of toolboxes, right? It comes with the robotics toolbox, it comes with computer vision toolbox, image processing, computer vision control. For example, if you have a robot arm that you're trying to program for an idea, right? If you know MATLAB and you know how to use the robotics toolbox, then it's much easier to program the robot, because the robotics toolbox comes with all the kinematics equation, like the forward kinematics, inverse kinematics, all of this stuff that you need, right? And so for mechanical engineers, it's C, MATLAB. Nice to know. On top of these two would be Python. For electrical engineers, C is a must. Again, if you want to become a robotics electrical engineer, chances are you will be developing tools or firmware that talk to low-level electronics. And low-level electronics, the language is C, no question asked. You must know C. And many times you also will need to develop C++ code, but it usually for electrical engineers is not advanced C++, it's just the basics. It's just you need to know what classes, what a struct is, just the concept of object-oriented programming. If you learn those stuff, that would be helpful. And again, MATLAB is your friend because of all the toolboxes that it has. And if you want to become a robotics software engineer, C++ is a must. I mean, if you do not know C++, just forget about joining the industry as a robotics software engineer, right? And you need to be really good at it. It's just not the basics. You have to know very advanced topics. You need to know like pointers, the smart pointers, raw pointers, templates, inheritance, all of these stuff. And on top of it, Python, you would need it, no question asked, especially if you have a graduate degree. If you're a PhD master, chances are you'll be developing algorithms, and then you need to, more than likely in the research phase, you need to rapid put up ideas, right? And then Python is your friend because for the same reason, because Python has a ton of libraries for almost everything you can think of. It's much quicker to code in Python compared to C++ because of all the libraries, right? So C++, Python, and MATLAB would be also nice to know because, again, chances are you'll end up using MATLAB for some of these quick, rapid operations. For example, if you're dealing with matrices, which you're doing any computer vision, any kinematics, you're gonna, like, the images are 3D matrices, right? So, and if you know MATLAB and you want to quickly test something or you want to develop an algorithm, it's much, much easier compared to C++ or even Python. MATLAB is your friend when it comes to vectors and matrices. So to summarize, mechanical engineers learn C, MATLAB, electrical engineers learn C, C++, and maybe Python and MATLAB. And if software, if you want to become a robotic software engineer, C++ is a must, no question there. And then learn Python and MATLAB as well.
Thank you so much, Sina. That was so comprehensive. And I know that I saw your video about how choosing a programming language for robotics, and I invite all people to go and watch that for more details. So how important are ROS, the robot operating system, and knowing about some kind of simulator like Gazebo? Do robotics companies require that?
Yeah, I'm going to be very honest here. I've never used ROS in the past in any of my projects. There were two situations or two small projects that I could use ROS, but I did not end up using it. So in all the projects I've worked on, I have not used ROS. I'm not saying it's not used in the robotics industry. I'm saying I have not used it, right? But again, there were a couple of projects that I could have used ROS, and I know ROS is used a lot in robotics, but it's a separate path. For example, you could become like a robotics software engineer and picking up all the skills that we'll talk about or talked about in my videos, or you could be just a ROS developer. Like all you know is ROS, C++, or Python, and you know robotics, kinematics, computer vision, and you basically program a robot, right? It's a little different. Like you would be a ROS developer as opposed to like a robotics software engineer who develops like algorithms or something from scratch, right? But it's just my opinion, my experience, right? But you or other robotics engineers may have different experiences. I know ROS is used a lot in the robotics industry, but I have not used it that much, so I'm not probably the right person to comment about it.
Okay, thank you so much. So this question is from one of the viewers. He said, I recently got into college, and as my side hobby, I started indulging myself into the very field. I have one question in mind. How does the future look for people like us who does robotics as a side hobby and have a non-engineering background? How can we steer our way to a job? So he's basically saying that he's pursuing robotics as a hobby and he's self-learning. So can he find a job in robotics?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. There's a shortage of talent in robotics. Believe me. We have physicians. I mean, I've worked for 3 companies, and all 3 companies, we've had like especially robotics software engineering positions that stayed open for months, some of them even for years. As a matter of fact, a couple of days ago, I was talking to one of the biggest recruiters of surgical robotics in the area, and he was stating almost the same thing. It's super difficult to find qualified robotics software engineers, right? So if you're pursuing this as a hobby and gradually picking up their skills, you're learning C++, you use you use Arduino boards or Raspberry boards to do your own projects. Maybe you do computer vision on the side. You have a robot kit. From time to time, you just do your own project. I don't know if it's complete. For example, you're making a robot that finds tennis ball and collects them, something like that. You're gradually picking up those skills like computer vision, navigation, maybe tool tracking, maybe a little bit of programming, maybe a little bit of mechatronics. And these skills are valuable. And in the industry, we value these skills a lot. So with those skills and the projects that you have done as a hobby, so I see them in your project. I know that you know yourself very well because you have done so many projects as your hobby and you enjoy doing it. That's the other part of it, right? If you're doing it as a hobby, it tells me that you enjoy doing it. So chances are those companies or employers will offer you a job if you have the right set of skills.
Thank you, Sina. So another person asked, in order to land a job or to get accepted in a master's degree, do you think online certifications can be a big help? And if so, which one would you recommend?
Yeah, so absolutely. I will highly recommend some of those online programs. I don't want to name them here, but the reason is some of those online programs, they're actually developed by real, what do you call them? Like real life engineers, top-notch engineers from Google, from Mercedes, from they're people who have experience in the field. So those people have developed those programs, right? So the stuff they teach, the topics they teach, the courses they teach, is based on their experiences, right? I hate to say that, but when you go to the schools, many professors, they have not worked in the industry, maybe more than a year, or if they have worked, it's a couple of years experience, but the majority never worked in the industry, right? So they don't have the real exposure to the skills, the actual projects that are done in the industry. So, but some of those online programs are so good because the people who develop those are people who have experience, who are top-notch engineers from top tech companies, right? So, and then on the other thing that if you take an online program and complete it, then it tells me or a potential employer that you're a self-learner. Mm-hmm. And in the robotics industry, there are a lot to learn. It's not like you graduate, even with a PhD, it's not like you graduate with a PhD in robotics and you know everything, right? That's not like that at all. You need to learn every week. The stuff we do is complex stuff. It requires a lot of math, a lot of algorithms, a lot of problem-solving skills and self-learning skills. So you need to be a self-learner if you want to become a robotics engineer. And again, just taking one online course, it tells me that you took the initiative to learn on your own. You discovered the skills that you needed to learn. You completed that course and you have the skills. The other factor is you have the skills. I can see it. You have done the projects, you have the skills. So I would definitely recommend some of those online programs. I'm not saying all of them are good, but there are some that are really good. And I've seen many cases. I've seen many of my friends with PhD in a different field, PhD mechanical, electrical, civil engineering who have taken some of those online degrees or nano degree programs or whatever. And with those, they were able to pick up their skills and land a job with some of those high-tech companies.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Sina. Somebody said, I am from a poor country. I'm struggling to find a good job or company where I can practice and develop my skills in robotics. How do I stick to my passion and become the best at it?
What if they don't have the resources in hand to get internships and all those kind of things?
Yeah, there's no excuse. Get the heck out of the country. If your country does not offer the opportunities you might be looking for, just get the hell out. Just come to the US, Canada, US specifically, get a master's here. That master has to be online. In person. Get the master, come to the US, get a master, and chances are you're more than likely you can get funding here. So you don't have to pay for tuition or living costs. And then pick up the skills during your master's program. And with that, you can not easily, but you would be much more likely to land your dream job as opposed to being stuck in a country where it doesn't offer that many opportunities, right? That's what I did. I wanted to become a robotics engineer. I had a bachelor's degree. I worked a couple of years in my country, and then eventually my country did not offer that many opportunities. So I decided to come to the US. I got my master's and PhD here, picked up the skills, and gradually worked my way up to the dream job that I wanted.
That was a perfect answer. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I got a PhD in computer science, but took 4 years off from advanced AI programming. How bad it is in terms of finding an industry job in robotics? So this is actually a question about a gap, a 4 years gap.
So again, as long as people have the skills we're looking for because of the lack of talent, right? If you have the skills, I don't think hiring managers or teams will care that much about the gap. Mm-hmm. Especially if you have a good explanation about the gap, then I don't think that would be a problem at all.
Okay. I don't think either, but I think they should explain what were they doing in that 4 years in terms of why there is a gap in there and what they were doing. So this is a little bit sad, but I'm going to read it. I want to be anonymous because I feel like I'm a loser. I have a PhD in robotics, 12 journal articles, and 2 patents from my research. I really like what I'm doing, but I wasn't successful in finding any job in academia or industry. Most top companies only need software programmers and hire people if they have a bachelor's or master's degree. But most don't even interview with a PhD. Some companies with research positions want you to know machine learning, deep learning, and artificial intelligence, and anything else is considered useless. Over 100 companies have rejected me. What should I do? I think there is some truth about it, because nowadays most companies require candidates to know machine learning, deep learning, and artificial intelligence. And as you said, they should learn at least C++ or one type of programming languages. And most graduates, especially in mechanical engineering, they haven't worked with those things before.
First of all, that person is not a loser. Your PhD is worth because you've done a project. It tells me that you were passionate about robotics. You learned a lot. You did research in that field. But again, getting into robotics companies, especially surgical robotics, is very difficult. I mean, it's the reality. Again, because of those reasons I explained, it's super difficult. So don't get disappointed. Just try to do an internship first. Again, like I said, if you do an internship, build your network, it's much easier. But right out of the
Can he do internship after graduation? Because I think he's graduated.
yeah, some companies do accept PhD graduates for internship. Yes, and again, the other thing is, as I said, there's a lack of talent in robotic software engineering. He is right. But again, if that person picks up the skill that we need, like if he or she, if he picks up the skills, for example, if he's good at math, he should be because he has a PhD in robotics, right? And then just pick up the skills, like learn C++. There are plenty of online courses that you can just maybe in a couple of months learn C++, do a project with it so that it shows people that you know C++ very well. And then just learn some of those other skills like computer vision, data structures, and other stuff. If it's so my recommendation, the fast track that I tell people is there are online courses, online programs, or online nanodegree programs. I don't want to name the platform that they offer like a program, a mini master, or they call it micro master, whatever they call it, a nanodegree, whatever they call it. If you complete that, you can probably complete that in 6 to 8 months, and you're gonna learn a lot. Mm-hmm. And if people see that in your resume, it tells them that you have the skills. And again, if you have the skill, your chances gonna go really high. So don't miss this opportunity. Spend 6 to 8 months and enroll in one of those. Some of them are not even that expensive. I mean, there's sometimes they are on sale for 75%, the discount 25% or so. And maybe for $200, $300, you can enroll, complete, and then your chances will go much, much higher. So that's my recommendation. And again, that's a reality because in the robotics industry, we care more about the skill than the degree. End of the story. So it's not like that we just hire like bachelors or masters. As a matter of fact, a lot of companies, a lot of robotics companies, if you look at job descriptions, they say they prefer masters or PhD because the things we do, the projects we do are very complex. And based on my experience, usually people who have advanced degree, like master's or PhD, they do a much higher quality job compared to people who have a bachelor's at the beginning, at least for the first couple of years, because they're already familiar with the research phase. They usually do a better job, a more detailed job. They usually have a better understanding of the core concepts, like math. They're really good at math and statistics, algorithms, like the science behind the things we do. They tend to learn it faster compared to people who just have a bachelor's degree. So I don't think he has a right statement there that said companies like hire only bachelors, like people who have bachelor's degree. That's not the case.
Changed, I think. I also think that it's changed.
Yeah, especially when it comes to self-driving car companies as well as surgical robotics companies. Again, because the things we do are complex.
Exactly.
And companies rather hire people with advanced degrees, PhD and master. Just pick up their skill, you'll be in good shape.
So is it a true statement that if he doesn't know machine learning, deep learning, or AI and robotics, they won't hire him?
It's not really. Again, AI, machine learning, ML, it's a big field on its own and it has application in many different areas, robotics and many other areas. Robotics is one of them. For example, I don't know, like Facebook, or other tech companies, Microsoft, who are not involved in robotics, they may require AI and machine learning skills. But when it comes to like surgical robots, for example, or self-driving cars, AI is a small part of it. And you don't have to really go deep into AI If you just know C++, computer vision, kinematics, PID controller, you're good. You're in good hand. You probably just, when you learn computer vision, you'll have to learn the concepts of AI, the classification and stuff like that. And then if you take a computer vision course, chances are you're going to learn some of those concepts, some of the machine learning and AI concepts. But a lot of jobs in the robotics industry, they do not require deep understanding of AI. Take me an example. I'm not an AI expert at all. I mean, I know a little bit about AI and machine learning, enough to be able to do my projects. And but if needed, again, if you have an advanced degree, if you have shown that you're a self-learner, if you need in one project to learn AI, just take one online course, a couple of months, you learn it, you do the project, and then it's the on-the-job learning. That's one of the most valuable experiences, on-the-job training or on-the-job learning, right? So you're going to learn a lot if you do a project with it, as opposed to just maybe reading a book or taking a course.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that roboticists use the algorithms that the computer scientists develop, and they incorporate this in robotics technology. So it's not something that they should be really good at. Just using those skills and incorporating them into robotics technology is enough. So thank you so much. Okay, this one is a good question. Do I have a chance to get a job in robotics if I haven't received my degree from a top university?
Absolutely. Again, in the robotics industry, we do not care, at least the companies I've worked for and my personal experience, they don't care that much about the degree you have or where you got it from, right? As long as you know your stuff, as long as you know the skills, you have the skills, and you have the passion for robotics, then you're good.
Okay. I'm a fresh graduate in robotics. Which option is better for me? Working in a top established robotics company with a big name, or being hired in a small startup but having my own voice?
Yeah, that's one of those questions, right? I'm gonna say overall, it's much easier to get into a startup as opposed to a big company. Mm-hmm. So if you're applying for tech companies or even big companies, corporations, and then you're getting rejections after rejections, then probably start smaller. Just work your way up. Start with startups, and it's much easier. You can just even call them, go physically there, talk to them, maybe even just do an internship with them, maybe even unpaid internship, right? Even if they do not have funding or money or positions available, just say, hey, I'm really interested. I'll work for you for a couple of months as an intern, unpaid internship, right? If you can. But overall, startups are easier to get into. And the other benefit is if you're fresh, you're gonna learn a lot more in a startup environment compared to a big corporate, right? Mm-hmm. I've worked in startups, and as an engineer in a startup, you're gonna wear different hats. You will be a software engineer, you will be a mechanical engineer, you will be an electrical engineer, you will be a robotics engineer, one day you will be a test engineer, one day you will be an HR, just interviewing people. It's just that you'll do a lot of different stuff and you get exposure to different areas in robotics. So if you prefer to work on different areas of robotics, like maybe design, mechanical design, and mechatronics, and at the same time you want to work on the software side, algorithms, computer vision, and stuff like that, more than likely a startup would be a better setup for you, right? But if you have, 3-5 years of experience working in startup, and now you want to specialize in one area, maybe you want to join a bigger company so that you can specialize in just one area. Like the job I'm doing now, I'm specializing in one area. although like the general knowledge of robotics, all the other stuff, kinematics, PID controller, those help. But right now, my daily job, I don't do control right now. However, it's really useful to have that knowledge, right? But it's not like I'm doing like mechatronics or control right now. So I'm just specializing on the algorithm side, right? So it depends. Again, it depends.
Okay. So you brought up the topic of rejection. How common is it when they are applying for jobs? I know that people get frustrated and some say I'm a loser, some... I think that it's very, very common. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about rejection here.
Yeah, one of the main reason is the start of the process, which is your resume, right? So I've seen resumes like 2 or 3 pages, a lot of words in it. And if I'm looking for, like, say, I don't know, like if there's one job position, usually companies receive hundreds of resumes, right? And if it's a small company, even if it's not a startup, it's a small company, let's say 50 to 100 employees, right? They don't have a dedicated HR person. Usually they don't have a dedicated HR person. It's just the engineers who have to go through, like the hiring manager who has to go through resumes after resumes, right? And so if I have a job, if I'm a hiring manager and I have a position and I've received, let's say, 100 resumes, and on top of all the other jobs I have to do, I have to look at the resumes as well, right? I'm not going to read the entire resume. I mean, I'm probably guilty of it. I don't read resumes from like word 1 to the last word at all. Sometimes like the way people write their resume is really hard to find the skills you're looking for. So that's why you have to customize. This is very important. You have to customize your resume for that specific job. So if you just have one general or default resume and you send it to all the other jobs that you find, you're going to get rejected. And you have no right to complain about it because it's really hard for people to find the skills they're looking for in your resume. And your resume is 2 or 3 page long. And forget about it. No one is going to go through 2 or 3 pages of resume, especially for a small companies with no dedicated HR people. And even bigger companies, like usually HR people, they're not technical people. I mean, I respect them a lot. Many of them know a lot because they worked for that company for a long time. And I've met recruiters. A couple of days ago, I met one recruiter who even knows about kinematics. So he talks to me about inverse kinematics, forward kinematics, and I'm shocked. I say, hey, you know a lot about robotics. And he goes, that's what I do on a daily basis, so I need to learn the concepts, right? But that's not the case with many HR people. They're not really technical people. We don't expect them to be technical, right? So they look at the job description and I look at your resume. If they do not see quickly, if in the first 10 seconds, if they do not see, especially engineers, if they do not see the skills they're looking for in your resume and it's buried somewhere in your resume, but it's not clear, it's not on the top of your resume, chances are you're gonna get not getting the attention you really deserve. So here's my recommendation. Your resume should be 1 page. Don't make it more than 1 page, if possible. If you have years of experience, maybe no more than 2 pages. But if you're fresh, if you have a couple of years of experience, make it 1 page. No question asked. Make it 1 page. On the top, instead of your education, don't put your education on the top. On the top, it should be summary of qualification. You should have a section for summary of qualification. And then under that section, just bullet points. For example, if your research or PhD or research project was about surgical robotics, just put surgical robotics right up there. If your research was or your experience is computer vision, just say expertise in computer vision or just say expertise in surgery. What I say in my resume, on the top, I say expertise in surgical robotics, and in parentheses, I say knee, spine, because these are the two areas that I've worked in, right? And right after that, you should have a section that says technical strengths, right? There that reads technical strength. And underneath that, you should have a couple of bullet points. The first thing should be, according to the job description, you have to customize it, right? If the job description, for example, requires programming knowledge and it says C++, you definitely should put it right there. It says technical skill. Right underneath that, it says programming language. And the first thing I see is C++, right? And in parentheses, to see advanced, that I know, okay, you know advanced topics. And maybe just explain as smart pointers, a couple of bullet points that I know, okay, that guy or that girl knows all of these advanced topics in C++. And then just have a couple of points and then just list all the skills that are in the job description, right? So now I'm an engineer, hiring manager, engineer that is going through the resumes. The first 5 seconds, I see those and I'm sold. I will give that person an interview right away. I just see those and say, hey, okay, that's a qualified candidate because he or she has all the skills I'm looking for. So I don't have to go through all the resumes and look through the project he has done to find out. So people just list their projects, which they should do, but it should be right after these bullet points that are eye-catching skills right there that I see, okay, he or knows C++. Now I go down to the projects or the job or the work experience, and I look for the projects. I say, okay, so he or she knows C++. They know C++. Now I look at the project to see, okay, so they have developed, I don't know, like an algorithm for X-ray to something. And I said, okay, so he or she probably knows C++, computer vision. And so change your resume according to the job description. For every job description, you should customize your resume, right? So that will increase your chances significantly. And what else I wanted to say? Yeah, so your resume should, the purpose of your resume should be to get you an interview. And then during the interview, you can talk about your project in detail, what you have done, what you have learned, and demonstrate to the hiring manager that you know your stuff, right? So that's one thing. The other thing, again, as I said, do an internship if possible, especially people with advanced degree. If you want to get into the robotics industry, if you're going to get the industry, experience is more important than your GPA. The other mistake that people make is when they're doing their PhD or master's, they care a lot about their GPA. And then they put a lot of effort in like passing their courses with higher score. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying GPA, we don't care. I don't care. I mean, if you have a bachelor's degree, yes, that's the only metric that shows that you're good, right? But if you have an advanced degree, you have a master's or PhD, we're looking at your projects. We're looking inside your project, the skills, what projects you have done, what the skills you have. You don't, like, industry people usually don't care that much about publications for advanced degrees. And so don't put your publications in your resume. If you're applying for an industry job, if it's academia, I get it. It's totally different. Put all your publications, make your complete CV and list all your publications. But if you're applying for an industry job, then just do not put your publications. You can have one line at the end of your resume, just say the list of publications can be provided upon request, right? But overall, don't put it there. Put all your skills. And if you're doing a master's or PhD, just focus on your project and try to do a practical project, not all theory. Try to use some of those skills that we talk about and in your project. Try to do some hands-on projects so that if I see hands-on projects, if I see you have done some projects, chances are all companies will offer you at least an interview to get to know you and your skill better.
Yeah, these are really good pointers. I know that I made this mistake of writing the very long resume. I thought that I should put everything in there, but that's totally wrong. And as you said, only the skills that the company is looking for. Thank you so much, Sina. Okay, this one is a question in another direction a little bit. Taro said, I have a great startup idea in robotics. Is it a good idea to leave my 9-to-5 job and focus full-time on my own company? What books should I read for this? I don't know if this is a right question for you, but a lot of people nowadays are thinking about developing an app, especially startup companies in robotics. They're rising a lot every day. I see on the news.
Right. I mean, again, I'm not the right person to answer that question because I have not founded my own startup. I mean, I have tried in the past, but I had no success. Bottom line, I'm probably not the right person to comment there. But something I can tell them is that if you work for a couple of years in the industry, you're going to have a much better understanding of what is actually needed so that then you can probably leave your job and found your own startup, right? But if you're fresh out of school or you just got your PhD, sometimes it's difficult to know if the idea that you think will be a good idea is actually what people need in the industry. But if you work in the industry for, 3-5 years, then you get exposure to all different challenges, to all different problems that a specific project is facing. And then if you have one idea to solve any of those problems, then your chances of success if you leave your job and found your own company will be higher. That's something I can tell. Other than that, I have read some of those entrepreneurship books and I have attended workshops in the past. And again, I have attempted to have my own startup, but no success.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sina, for your tips. So one viewer said, I'd like to know what it's like in a day in the life of a roboticist. So please describe a typical day in your life, how many hours you work, what your hobbies are, and other things you'd like to share.
Yeah, it depends. First of all, it's fun. Like robotics engineering is fun, it's challenging. I've worked as a mechanical engineer. I've worked as a test engineer. I've worked in many different, like I said, I've worked for startups in the past. And I know, like, if you compare robotics to other, like for at least my experience, robotics compared to other fields like mechanical is much more fun because if you're a mechanical engineer, you probably will learn everything you need to learn in that specific job after 2 or 3 or 4 years. And then after that, you're stuck. Usually within the first 2 years, you're going to stop learning and you're going to get bored, right? But robotics is different. It's a constant challenge. You're going to have to learn almost every day, especially or specifically if you're a robotics software engineer, right? You're a robotics software engineer, and then you're working for a surgical robotics company. It's a constant challenge. You're going to have to learn every single day. You're going to have to read papers, understand the algorithms in the papers, sometimes implement the algorithm, sometimes tweak the algorithm, sometimes make it better. You're going to have to learn C++, advanced C++, data structures, design patterns, all the tools, the new tools that software engineers use, right? So it's fun. I love what I do. Like, it's my dream job. I truly and honestly just enjoy my job as a robotics software engineer. I've never been happier in my career before than now as a robotics software engineer, right? So daily job, usually robotics software engineers, it starts around, in the US, it starts sometimes around 8:30 or 9, depending on the teams you're working with. Sometimes some companies you work with a lot of different teams from different countries. So sometimes you have to get up earlier. For example, if you're working with a team in India or working with a team in Europe, chances are you're going to have to wake up a little earlier. But usually it starts around 9 a.m. And software engineers, we usually have something we call it, what do we call it? Like a stand-up meeting. So every day I have a meeting at 9 a.m. For about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, where we give people updates. The team, we give them updates. And also, if there are challenges, problems, roadblockers, we talk about them. And the day starts with that. And then usually, it's for me, my day is a cup, like maybe in the morning. I try to get up early in the morning, and I start my day with a coffee for sure. Especially Cuban coffee. If you're in the Miami area, you know how good Cuban coffee is. And then you put on music, and then usually
Miami is a good
music
place for Cuban coffee food.
Yeah, it's really good. So if you drink colada and you have a Latino music, like people, it's just, you can just develop great code. That's just a recipe, right? But I'm just kidding. Yeah, so it starts with a stand-up meeting in the morning, my day, and then usually it's I dedicate my morning to the jobs or the tasks that need a lot of focus, and so it's usually I put my cell phone on focus mode, so there's no interruption, and I learned that that's the best productivity trick that you can do. Just put your cell phone on focus mode. I put it on focus mode, and I have a 2 hour of deep work. Like I put on my headset and just do not pay attention to anything else. Try to do deep work, because again, the stuff we do is very complex. If you're interrupted all the time, it's really hard to get into the detail, and it's hard to solve the problem or come up with a solution. So it's usually the task that needs a lot of attention, I put in the morning, like usually from 9:30 to 11:30. I do that task. And then usually around noon, it's lunchtime break. And then in the afternoon, sometimes we have meetings, so attend meetings. And you follow up with the team. Usually we work with, again, robotics is multidisciplinary. We work, especially in the surgical robotics arena, we work with the different teams, different people, engineers with different backgrounds. We work with clinical engineers who, they work with surgeons or nurses. We work with the quality team. We work with systems engineers. We work with mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, right? So usually just to sync up with the team, understand if you present the work to them to see if to solve their problem or if the project is going the right way. And then a couple of hours in the afternoon, I usually do some coding in the afternoon. And again, because we plan for usually software teams, beginning of the month, they plan for the entire month. They call it a sprint. Sometimes sprints are 2 weeks, sometimes 1 week. So you plan for the entire sprint, whether it's 2 weeks or 1 month. And then you have different tasks. In the Jira, there's a platform we call it Jira. It's right there. And then you try every day, you give an update to the team where you are according, compared to your plan or the tasks that you do. But overall, for me, it's basically because I'm working on algorithms, but it could be different for the person. But for me, it's usually a couple of hours of deep work into the algorithm itself. I read paper from time to time to understand different algorithms. And also there are times where I had to go deep in the code, in the legacy code that existed before this project. It's usually thousands of lines of codes. And from time to time, I have to go through like hundreds of lines to fully understand what's going on, which is very difficult. That's why I have one of these vertical monitors so that I can see more lines, like usually hundreds of lines, like 100 line of code. And so I do a couple of hours of coding. It's a couple of hours of algorithms, sometimes 1 hour of paper reading, and 1 hour of meeting, syncing up or giving people feedback, asking questions from the team or presenting the team. And if I'm behind, sometimes if you're behind, if it's hard to solve the problem, I work at night or even weekends, because again, we have deadlines, we have to meet deadlines. But the company I work for, life, like they say, work-life balance is really good. But usually, I don't work on weekends usually, but there have been times where I work non-stop, nights and weekends, to be able to deliver a project on time. Overall, it's fun. Robotics is fun, and you're gonna.
You have a very prolific YouTube channel as well, and it's your stuff is really good. When do you have time to film all this stuff?
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. It started with me just trying to document the stuff I learned. So because usually like when I started, like it was back in 2016 or something, 2016, when I first was trying to transition from robotics mechanical engineering to robotics software engineering. It was my first attempt. And there were a lot of stuff I needed to learn, like basic stuff, like how to install a Python module, right? And I had to Google, watch videos and learn how to do it. And I started documenting those like in a Word document. And I said, okay, I want to record these and maybe put it on YouTube for myself so I can go back to it later if I need to do it again. And I put it as a public, I put those videos as public, not private. And I saw it got some attention. And from that point, I saw a potential to teach people or put out some videos that may help people as well. So it has become one of my hobbies, or recently more of a passion for me, to teach people, to help people to land their dream robotics jobs. And I do it usually overnights or weekend times. And sometimes, like last year, I did not release a video for 4 months because I was very busy with the project I was doing at work, and it required a lot of hours. So I did not have time to release a video. But again, if I'm ahead in my project and I have time, then I'll create the video. And again, it takes a lot of time. So I delegated some of those tasks. I have my own video editor, and I have some admin for some of the social platforms which they do some of the jobs. So yeah, it's fun.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Sina. Thank you so much for explaining everything in detail. And I'm sure that our viewers would enjoy it, and it will shed light on their path to excel robotics. Thank you so much for being here today. If you have any more comments to add, if you have any tips, if you have any go-home advice for people, we would like to hear.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for having me on your channel, Madi. I think it's my pleasure to talk to you and your audience. So, surprise, I'm going to give 2 of your audience 1 month of free mentorship. So, I will pick 2 lucky viewers from your channel, have them reach out to me. My email is, just come to my Instagram, go to my channel, you'll find my Instagram, DM me on Instagram. I'll pick 2 and I'll mentor them for a full month, free, no charge at all. And I'll review their resume. I'll help them with some of the skills that they need. I'll have a customized roadmap for them, and I'll try to help them to become a robotics engineer. So that's my giveaway to your audience.
That's a great surprise.
Sure. And then the second point is I want to just highlight that if you're stuck in your career, if you're a mechanical engineer, stuck in your job, electrical engineer with a PhD, and you're designing, for example, USB, and you're not happy with your job is not fulfilling, become a robotics software engineer. There's a huge shortage. Believe me, there's a huge shortage. Just learn all the skills. Go to my channel, go to your channel, Madi's channel, learn the skills that we need, that the industry needs. Learn those skills. If you have a couple of hundreds of dollars to spare, spend those on one of those online programs, complete them in 6 to 8 months, and your life will change. Believe me, I've done that. I've seen many people doing that, and like a lot of comments that you had from your viewers, it seems like some of them are a little disappointed with the job market, but the reality is if you have this skill, especially in robotics software engineering, your chances will go much higher. So that's my final note here. So again, thank you very much, Madi.
Thank you.
And so have a great day.
Links to Sina's work will be provided in the description. Be sure to follow him to learn more about him and his work. We also would like to have you as part of the Mechatronics family. Your feedback, suggestions, or whatever you wish to share with us would be highly appreciated. We strive to answer your questions in less than 24 hours. Or if you have constructive feedback, we definitely will incorporate them.